Welcome to Beyond the Wild podcast, where we go venturing beyond the gear, beyond the subject, beyond the shot, to find the heart of wildlife and adventure creative. Beyond the Wild podcast is brought to you by pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA. Listen in, we share tips and tactics learned from years of journeying into the wild. Your hosts are Jason Loftus, Ron Hayes, and myself, Mark Raycroft. Let's begin another episode of Beyond the Wild.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. Got myself, Ron Hayes, coming to you from home in Wyoming. Jason Loftus coming to us from swampy. Where you at, Jason?
I'm in Texas, down here for work.
The swampy's an inside joke, but
Yeah,
you can all just come to your own conclusions.
It's a little warmer than usual down here in Texas.
And Mark Raycroft coming to us from the jungles of
Canada.
Where you at, Mark? Yeah.
I'm in Canada. This is like going back in time. It's like prehistoric times. The temperatures are flipped. It's spring's arriving at the end of February. Dinosaurs will be here next. Yeah. I still set up my podcast studio, so I'm going with the giant jade. Check it out on YouTube.
Jungle.
Yeah.
So we're recording this on February 22nd. Yesterday afternoon, February 21st, in Wyoming, for crying out loud. It rained for probably 4.5 hours. No snow, 100% rain all day. It was crazy.
That is not normal.
Not normal, and it's not necessarily a good thing, right? Because this is when we need to be getting the big snows that, they just fill up the sagebrush, and the sagebrush holds them till April, May. And, maybe we'll get those spring storms. We're going to be optimistic. But it is a bizarre year.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah, we go from last year where we were getting record snow totals over most of the West to this year in mid-February. It's, in the 50s and 60s and raining. It's
last
crazy.
year you guys were sitting on like 900 inches of snow in places in Utah, weren't you?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
It was crazy. But anyway, enough about the weather.
Yeah.
Well,
it's nice. And so I did hear again in February, talking to a guy here locally, and he said, "Have you been up such and such a road?" And I said, "No, not for a while." I said, the elk have moved on, so I haven't been up there for a while. And he said, "You got to drive up there." He said, "There's an active sharp-tailed grouse lek at the top of this hill in mid-February. It's so nice that they're already started. So we'll see how long they go. But
well, hopefully they go until some females show up.
Yeah, exactly. Don't wear yourself out, boys.
Get a little excited.
So turkeys were strutting here this week as well with hens around.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
and I
crazy.
just on the weather stuff. This isn't for those that flew to Iceland to do the volcanoes and all that craziness. I mean, that's just nuts to see some of those landscapes. Mind blowing. You may not have to go as far. This is sad news, really, and I don't want to focus on this because I want to talk about exciting wildlife photography stuff. But in the news, talking about lack of precipitation in the high elevations, which is what keeps things hydrated through spring and early summer. It's just not there this year. And out in Western Canada, there's still more than in the news this week. There are still more than 100 wildfires smoldering this winter. They haven't gone out yet. So there's a lot of serious concern about what this spring and summer is going to be like without the snowpack and with these fires still smoldering, what that might result in. So something to keep your eye on and be concerned about. And it's sad, really, but who knows where that'll go. But it's concerning. Ron, what are we going to do today on this podcast?
Well, we haven't done one of these for a long time. Obviously, we just started back up, but we haven't done one of these for a long time. First of all, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on, and I think I shared last time I'm kind of getting tired of the clickbait on all the rumor sites. However, there's been some exciting things that are out, and I think we are getting very close to some announcements, probably within a month and a half, some announcements for sure, and getting close to specs on the R5 II and R1 for Canon. There's exciting things going on all over the place. Again, I saw the Nikon. So those of you that are bird photographers, the Nikon firmware, there is a bird mode, a bird focus mode now. And the results that I'm seeing are unbelievable. It is about the sharpest images I've seen for a long time. And then, of course, you got that awesome Nikon color that I do miss. However, Mark, again,
as you're doing your happy dance,
R1 and the R5 II are coming out. But yeah, Mark, make sure you get that firmware and update us on that, because it looks insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, those caribou look a lot like a bird, so
Yeah.
When they're running by,
they,
as you know, they can catch a lot of air, right? So
absolutely,
you squint enough, they can fly. Yeah, I love what Z9 is doing. Honestly, I am so happy with that camera. I've been happy all throughout stages of Nikon cameras, except when they paused on the mirrorless transition, of course. But now with the Z9, it's the best camera I've had. The only significant compromise, I mean, you get so much material. An animal can be static and then jump, and you've still got it. You're staying with it with the focus. The movement, it captures it. But it's a trade-off because of the high frame rate, which is awesome for action, but it results in these huge folders of raw images, and going through, shooting tens of thousands and going through and picking out the favorites is that much more time consuming. I mean, the big positive is you have them to select from, but and the results, the consistency for action images is far higher than with what I was experiencing with DSLRs. But it's a lot more editing time, but I wouldn't trade it. And I love the camera for sure. Yeah, fantastic.
I know. My workflow is a little bit different than yours. I go through them I used to go through and do my cull first.
Mm-hmm.
And now I kind of just edit my way along. And it is, even with the frame rate on the R5 is not quite as high as the Z9. However, even with that, I find myself, I get to what I think is the best image in the sequence or the series, and I go ahead and go all the way through the editing process with it. And then I scroll over like 2 images and I'm like, oh, crap.
Start again.
I'm back in it for another 10 minutes.
Well, that's it. That's it. That's exactly it. Because you have to look through all 50 to find the best 2 or 3 you want to edit. But it's hard to do that because you'll get you're describing. You'll go in 10 frames like that's the one. And it's weird that this is a frustrating experience because it shouldn't be. But right? But all the time.
Speaking of first world problems, I guess it could be a lot worse, right?
And something I meant to add there too is, you're tempted to drop the frame rate at times. If it's static situations, I shoot in silent mode. I was going to get into that later too, it just makes sense for what I do. And if I have friends around that are shooting video, I don't want to be the noisemaker rattling off beside them. I just love the silent mode, but you can kind of tell the frame rate with the flashes on the screen. But at 10 frames a second, it doesn't chew up and add as many. But at any moment, something can happen in wildlife photography, and you don't want to be limited. So in the field, I'm always at maximum frame rate just because something flies by, something happens. I want to have that capability. But Ron, that was one of the things you hit a nail on the head there with. It's exactly that. I mean, you have to look through all of that sequence because there's so many treasures that could be in there, and that just takes time, and it's enjoyable. But when it's an assembly line, in a sense, where there's a lot of images coming out of it, it's just takes time and is part of the new process.
Yeah, it is a first world problem for sure. I mean, if you got two banger images instead of one, so what? Congratulations.
Right. Yeah.
But it does take up additional time for sure. So,
how long do you spend on an image? On average, would you say?
I mean, if I spend more than 10 minutes on an image, that's a long time.
Even like to the point where you've done the keywording and the metadata, that part too?
No, that takes additional time. And so when I rate, going through Lightroom, I'll rate them, and anything that's rated a 5, then that gets keyworded. Anything below that, I don't really mess with it too much, but the 5s are, that's ones that are publishable images or printable images or possibly cover images. And now, I'll use that in my keywording. Editorial, cover,
guaranteed cover,
whatever. You guaranteed cover. Yeah. If it doesn't get a cover, I'm going to be pissed. No.
That's a lot of metadata. That's good. You got to cover the base.
That's a lot of keywords. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so about 10
minutes.
I
mean, that's
10 or 15.
10 minutes on the editing. Unless there's an image from time to time, there's an image that I'll go in and clean some stuff up just because it's just a little bit distracting. And obviously if I transition over to Photoshop, it probably will take a little bit longer, but that's a rare image that I'm going to spend that much time. I mean, you don't do as many prints anymore. So, but if you find one that you're thinking, this is going to be a good printable image, then take the time to get it to the point where you'd want to put it on your wall. And, you might be in it for 30, 45 minutes to an hour at that point. Right. That's an extreme example though.
It's
Jason just uses the Loftus filter and it's a done deal.
Yeah. It's a one click. Nice.
It's not a one click, but I actually have been keeping track of this lately, and for me it's about 6 minutes per image on average. And like Ron said, there's exceptions. If it's a really good one that I really want to make work, that I just miss something and I can still think I can make it work, I might spend 15-20 minutes on it. But that's the nice thing with the way the tools are today, is it's really sped up the editing process. It makes it easier to spend more time in the field. But yeah, same challenge. I'm shooting 12 frames per second. I don't like shooting in the silent mode. I'm, the videographer's worst enemy. Just I'll stand right next to you and let her rip. But and it's not a selfish thing, honestly. I just don't think about it, and I like to hear the. I know, but I like to hear the click. I really do. For me, I like to know how many frames are going off and when I need to let off the button a little bit.
To do with the click, Jason's always doing the play-by-play too.
Yeah, I do a lot of talking when I shoot.
Look over here. Look over here. You want to. Look.
I do talk to him a lot. That's for sure.
Well, that's awesome.
That's probably more annoying than the clicks. Yeah.
Just film you in the field shooting. That'd be fun.
You know what? That's a great idea, Mark. I think Jason Loftus mic'd up in the field. That would be a great YouTube video. I think
like the NFL mic'd.
Yep, we'll do mic'd up. Make it happen.
That's too funny.
You could do one. Yeah, I think we should do that.
Oh, it's very doable.
Yeah. I've got the perfect mics for it. We're set. It's a go.
Yeah, microphones, those are awesome what you can get nowadays, or the little wireless ones. But could we do one where he knows he's mic'd up, but could we somehow do one where he doesn't know he's mic'd up?
Oh boy, that's a dangerous one.
That would be more difficult, but I think we could figure it out.
It's so small, right? Just on his hoodie or something.
We've got.
Figure it out.
I could give Heath the boom pole. My son.
Okay.
Give him the boom pole and get the Zoom mic out there
it.
for Jason. Yeah. He'll never know what's going on.
That'd be fun to listen to.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I think after a minute, you know what I mean, you'd forget you were mic'd up, you know what I mean? If you had it like for a day, you know, just cruising and letting her record everything that's going on, you know. With me, you'd probably only get a couple minutes of usable sound out of it, but for a whole day. But
not if we're in the car driving around and you're singing.
Yeah.
We'll get some good singing action.
Well, you get singing action. I don't know about good.
That's awesome.
So, you know what else is awesome? So, I hate to give Nikon too much praise, Mark, but
keep it coming.
One more thing that I think Canon needs to pay attention to is the popularity of these PF lenses. The lighter weight, you know, they're, as far as aperture is concerned, they're not as wide as a prime, but like the 500 5.6 and the, what is it, 800 6.3?
Yes.
I think.
Love it.
So Sigma,
There's a
supposedly, is there?
600 PF.
Supposedly, the Sigma is going to get access to the R mount. So having a third party lens producer with the R mount is going to make a big difference for people. And Sigma just came out with a 500 5.6 that's even smaller than the PF and lighter than the PF. And it's reasonably priced. I mean, it's not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. It's about $3,000. But it's currently available for Sony, the L mount and the Sony mount. What is it? The E mount? I can't remember what Sony is. Sorry. But it is a banging sharp little lens. And it's super light. So if you're traveling, to have something like that in the bag is going to make a huge difference. So I guess it's a good time while we're talking about Canon and what they should be doing.
Are you listening, Canon?
It's a good time to let people know that Canon is a partial sponsor of the podcast, along with Pictureline. So Canon is going to be a partner on this one. That was a huge deal for us, and we look forward to being able to do some workshops and maybe have some extra gear from the Canon reps, that kind of thing. Getting access to some gear to test out and share with you guys. Again, you can get everything at pictureline.com, but we will have some access to do some testing, and I'm really looking forward to that, getting my hands on some of this exciting new gear before it actually hits the streets. So, I mean, we're not Charles Glatzer yet. We don't have it already. but they're going to be a great partner.
And Pictureline's been fantastic, and I've been, again, I mentioned this before, but their Instagram is really active. You can see the stuff that they've going on, and they're more than a store. They're so involved in the photography community in all aspects of photography. So on their stories, on their reels, on their posts. And so if you're wondering how to find them out of curiosity, just to get some idea of the depth of Pictureline, you can link from our Instagram page, Beyond the Wild Podcast, to, it's right on there, to Pictureline, and then have a look, and you'll instantly see why they're a great sponsor for this show.
All right.
So do some.
Let's get to some. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say, I often have to be careful what I say out loud in front of Colin, who folks, as they call into Pictureline to ask for help or to buy gear will be somebody they'll probably run into at some point. And because he's a really good salesman, and if I mention something, he likes to sell me on it.
He's not a pretty good salesman. Jason owns everything that Canon makes.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true. Here we go again.
Oh, but Jason, they made a carry-on. Pelican made a carry-on that's a 1/4 inch bigger than last year's version, and Jason has one.
Oh, that's not true, and you're making it up.
You had me there. I just picked one up 6 months ago. I'm like, what? They made a bigger one?
I just picked one up for $40.
Oh, dang!
Off of Facebook. Yeah, and the foam is not even cut. It's brand new.
You got a foam one. Mine's got that yellow Velcro, just like a lot of camera bags. The adjustable.
Yeah,
Velcro.
I think I would like that. But yeah.
Well, if you know what you're going to do, the foam is tighter and kind of, it's just I guess you can manipulate it later, but it's maybe less versatile, but firmer if you just have the couple pieces are going to be in there, right? And doesn't hold it anyway. Right. You can just hold, 3 or 4 PF lenses.
3 or 4.
Maybe
all
one
of them.
Yeah.
He's rubbing it in.
The 800 is a lot of fun. The reach potential, I just love it. And the combination on a large full frame censored camera, like a 45 megapixel camera, is just so sweet for grizzly bears, for so many situations. Birds, Caribou Workshop client sent me a picture of a honeybee he just did in Florida, Dave, last week with the 800. So I was teasing him for using it as macro, but it's he did mention something about the frame rate and having to hold it that way. Finding the bee was a bit of a fun challenge, but I love that lens on that camera. Yeah, no regret.
Out of curiosity, Mark, what's the minimum focal distance on those?
I'd have to research that. I'm happy with it, but I'll give me 30 seconds and I'll pull it up here because I want to be accurate with it.
Sorry that I threw that out there, but
no, I'm going to guess it can't be super close. Yeah.
Yeah, I would guess 6 feet.
Yeah. I'm going to say 6.7 feet.
I'll go 3 meters.
6.7 feet.
It is 5 meters or 16.4 feet.
Oh, dang.
It's longer than I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's on the 800?
Yeah.
That doesn't really help you out with that bee.
Not much.
No wonder you can't find it.
You can see it clearly and everything. I don't know.
Is it a big bee?
It was a joke. Well, it's Florida and there's been no winter yet. That it's not something we use for macro. That was the joke about it. But honestly, I can't think of any situations where I run into any minimal focal distance issues with subjects because barely was that 16 feet from the subject while I'm using an 800. I guess I'm my focus, pun intended, is large mammals, and maybe it'd be interesting with something like the little ground squirrel or a pika, or as my friend Jamie says, pika, what it would be like there. But it can be fun to play with something small that way. You should still fill the frame with it and be with it beyond that minimum focal distance, which again is beneficial for the natural behavior. But it's interesting.
Right.
But the hand holdability of it, again, it's smaller than the 500 I had before.
Crazy. So. Yeah, you were toting that thing around when we were photographing mule deer in Colorado, and that was pretty impressive.
It's fun. Yeah. I like the zooms too. Everybody's got a good zoom brand-wise now, and that really is amazing what's out there for telephoto. But yeah, that's my kit, the 800 and the 180-6 for large mammals.
180-6, I heard, is an awesome lens too.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm not going back. Canon, if you're listening, I'm not going back. I'm coveting.
I think it's kind of funny, and this is in no way intentional whatsoever, because this show is not biased about any brand. I mean, it's the best tool for the trade, right? We've all been that way, and we've gone through different brands, and there's humor involved as with anybody in the field. But yeah, it's funny we mentioned that Canon is one of the sponsors, and we're still talking about Nikon, but Canon has fantastic gear. There is absolutely, and I mean, who's not, who shoots Canon, not just super curious to see what this R1 is going to be. I mean, it's been, people have been waiting for bated breath, holding their breath for the last 3 years. What's this camera going to be? So, again, as talked about on a previous podcast.
I've heard
okay,
from somebody that's had one in their hands.
Stop.
That, and this was not anybody affiliated with Picture Line. Let's just throw that out there. That technology-wise, it blows everything out there out of the water. And they couldn't say any specifics as to why. I would assume it's probably has a lot to do with the focus system. But if you think about the 1 series, it's totally different than anything else. The R5 is a fantastic camera. But the 1 series, where the R5 has 1 processor, the 1 series always has 2. And 1 is dedicated specifically just to the focus system. So if you've got the same speed that runs the whole R5 system at 45 megapixels, 8K video, but then you can do that. You can't do 8K video, it doesn't sound like, with the R1 because it's a little bit lower resolution sensor. But you can do 6K and have a better autofocus system because you've got another dedicated processor that's all it does is operate the focus system. I think technology-wise, it could be a big leap, but I still think I'll probably stick with the 5 series just for video purposes. That hybrid ability and higher resolution sensor.
Do you? I get that for stills. For the video part, do you shoot in 8K? I mean, I'm still shooting in 4K, not 8. I mean, I'm not marketing.
So the only time I shoot in 8K is if I know I'm going to crop deeply in.
I see. Okay.
Otherwise, I don't have any reason to have that gigantic file. Plus,
that's it, right?
The heat on the sensor with the R5, even though they've upgraded, the heat on the sensor is still going to get you at some point if you shoot in 8K the whole time. So I think Jason's going to go to sleep. No.
I'm just listening.
His screen just froze mid blink.
Oh. No, I was waiting for a time to cut in a little bit because I was going to take you back just a minute, because when you said, "Are you listening, Canon?" I'm not. I'm not looking at switch and I'm just coveting. Well, you really should be more concerned about Colin again, because Colin will start calling you and telling you all the amazing things about Nikon, and next thing you know, you'll have some Nikon gear in your hand, and you might be out there trying to upsell you on stuff. Trust me.
Right? No, I don't. He already did, and he hasn't delivered it yet, but it's coming. I got a new tripod. And so if anybody needs a professional series tripod, heavy duty carbon fiber legs, Sackler 18 S2, super smooth like silk. I've got one of those for sale. It'll handle up to 45-pound rig. It's called the active system. So it basically mounts on a post, and the advantage is it's a lot easier to level, and you don't have to move much in order to be able to level it. It doesn't handle as much weight, but what I'm finding is with my hybrid, I'm not shooting with the red at all anymore. That's for sale too, if anybody's looking. However, the shooting with the hybrid system, I don't need something that can handle 45, 60 pounds. So this Active 10, the advantage to that is I can put it on the tripod. I can shoot from ground level, literally. I can put it on a slider and have one of these posts mounted on the slider, do some real unique stuff. And then the big reason that I wanted it was because you can mount one of these posts to your vehicle and then just drop the active head right on the post. It's like window mounted, and have a rock solid setup on your vehicle as long as the wind's not blowing, of course. So Darren Bennett out of Colorado is the first one that I saw that built that setup for himself, and it's a great looking rig, and he uses it, gets some crazy stuff, when he's shooting for.
So is that the
but
brand?
I did get the active head.
Sackler. Is it
No,
still
it's Sackler.
It is, okay. And
Sackler. I've heard it pronounced like 5 different ways, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Nikon.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Nikon.
EZ. Here we go. Everybody sorted out. Well, that's fun.
So
that sounds more versatile, which is super cool.
I think it will be. Yeah. And you can buy as many of those little posts as you want. So you can have one on the vehicle setup, you can have one on the slider setup, and just leave it. It's a super adaptable system. So I'm pretty excited to use that, especially, with grouse season coming up and denning season for swift fox and red fox. So looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Mark,
no doubt.
Drop a pro tip bomb on us.
I've got this pro tip. This is a GorillaPod that a wonderful guest Erica on Caribou last fall had with her, and it's why I'm bringing it up. It is so versatile. It's something that, honestly, for the price point and the minimal weight of it, that it could fit in any pack, and it will mount a phone. It will mount an action camera like a GoPro, and it will even mount and support a small mirrorless camera. But the legs on it totally bend. You can wrap it and it will stick to a tree branch. So you could have it elevated, or you could have it as a tripod on the ground. One of the reasons it's about the price. This is $30 Canadian. It's got a ball head. You can level it that way. It was $22 US. It's on Amazon. We don't have our affiliate link yet because we're new, cutting edge new, but it's on Amazon. So it's
coming.
Good. It's the Lamb Cow flexible camera tripod GorillaPod, and so that's LAMMCOU on Amazon, and at those price points. So what ended up happening to me last fall, I had a guest on a wildlife trip, and we were in the mountains, and we were doing time lapse, and something I love to do and share just that ease of ability to collect that cool footage with just the smartphone. And so we set the smartphone up. The weather was moving through the mountains in front of us. We let the time lapse go for 15, 20 minutes and created this great scene. But I didn't have any system to mount the phone to. And in years past, I just lean it up against something, but it's not perfect, right? How do you get it the level right and have it straight up and down? So I'd put it on the top of the car or SUV that I'd rented. And I have a photo. It's hilarious. We got a great time lapse, but I took my shoes, and my hiking shoes were on either side bracing the smartphone to get it. So whereas this is, it solves all of that because it can level. It's totally flexible. And again, the fact that you can switch it to your GoPro. Some things I like to do, and if there's a game trail through the forest and I know there's a moose coming through and I'm 150 yards ahead. I could pop this on a tree, wrap it around a branch, activate the GoPro, and continue on and hope the animal comes through there and get some cool footage. There's a lot that can be done, and why I just wanted to mention this as a pro tip. And again, thank you, Erica, for sharing it originally. Is it's the price point. It's $22 or $30. It's not. Doesn't make sense that this was made and can be sold for that price, and it weighs nothing and just facilitates all of that. I use it, my wife's been in Australia, so I'll be editing and we'll have a phone conversation over WhatsApp video. And sorry, I'll just put it up on my desk and we're talking away. I don't have to hold it. It's eye level. It just makes life easier. So something to look at. We'll try to have a link in the show notes for today's podcast at beyondthewildpodcast.com as well. But very useful little tool that can strap to the side of a pack or fit in a pack. And again, the fact that it fits different devices for that price is awesome. It's really, it's great to be cutting edge. Take a call.
Yeah, right. And I know for a fact you can also get. Sorry, go ahead.
Brand new.
Yeah, the new cell phone. You think it get good looks when you pull this out, when you're talking to people on it nowadays, and it doesn't work. It's a joke, but sorry.
I was just going to say, I know for a fact you can get the GorillaPod stuff at Pictureline as well. So if you look up that product on pictureline.com or give Colin a call, like I said, you can find the same product.
If life wasn't so busy at times, I now feel badly for not checking that.
No, don't feel badly at all. I mean, they do sell the GorillaPod products. Yeah.
But this, they call it GorillaPod. It's not GorillaPod brand.
Okay.
It's lamb cow. No idea what that means, right? But it's not.
Oh, okay, it's probably a knockoff version. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not high end, but it's going to last me for years. And if it doesn't, it's $20 or $30, right? But that's something to, with enough time.
Good point.
I should have checked that to see what they have as well. But either way, something that's great to have in your kit. Just for the phone.
That's a good one.
There's so much more we're doing with smartphones. I mean, obviously not the high end stuff, but as far as videos, B-roll, Reels. Who's heard of Reels? Instagram wants Reels. Everybody have video, make Reels, right? Something like this can facilitate that. You could set it on something, walk past it, all kinds of ways to use it with your phone. Thank you for tuning in today's podcast. I feel like that took a little long, but I wanted to explain why I think it's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Jason, what do you have?
I'm gonna probably bring up one that we've mentioned way back, but it just happened again, and it caused one of the folks that was on the photo tour with us to miss some shots. So it's a reminder for all of us, and myself included, because fortunately I was able to make some quick adjustments when the scenario appeared, and was able to get the shot, but the couple other folks were not. And it's when you're driving around or you're out hiking.
Your job as the tour leader to make sure that they get the shot.
Well, funny enough, we just had that conversation. Right. Absolutely. So we had just had that conversation, literally. So that's why it's a great learning moment. So we're driving around, and whether you're hiking or whatever, right? As lighting conditions change, as things change, always be prepared to, especially if you're shooting in manual, throw your camera up and check things and adjust your settings. So if something happens, you can just rip it up, and you might have to make a couple of minor adjustments to get your exposure right, but you're ready to shoot. We were driving around in Yellowstone on that tour, and we had an ermine run across the road with a bull in its mouth. And lighting conditions had changed significantly from the previous time we'd stopped. So that everybody bails out. He gives us some really quick views. Didn't last very long. The person that had the issue it wasn't just a exposure issue. It was a focus point issue where they had moved their focus point and stuff, so it wasn't centered, and they had just started ripping away. So it's just a reminder, as you get done with a scenario or a shoot, you might want to check your settings, reset things, reset your focal point so you're ready for the next scenario. And then as lighting conditions change, always be updating those settings so that you can take advantage of something that happens really quick. And y'all know every now and then that does happen. It just happens so fast that if you're not ready, you're going to miss it. So fortunately for this person, the fun part of the story is I've been shooting in Yellowstone for quite a while. I've only seen one ermine ever before, never got any good shots of it. So we were able to get shots of this ermine, and then he was very disappointed, right? Well, obviously. And it was a lifelong shot for him too. He'd never, always wanted to, never been able to get a shot. So later in the trip, it was actually that same day later on, he was able to get a shot of another ermine, so we photographed two ermine in the same day at different locations. And he was able to get the shot, fortunately. So, but yeah, it's just a good reminder for all of us to, be thinking and cognizant about those situations that can unfold. So.
You can't do it. I mean, the exposure is what it is. You're exactly right. Every time you see the light change, you better be checking your exposure to make sure you're ready to go.
Right.
But the focus point on most camera systems, all you have to do is push that joystick straight in, and that focus point comes back to center, no matter where you're at.
Right.
So that's a good one to keep in mind too.
Yep.
As you're shooting, as things get dynamic and you're making adjustments all over the place, just don't forget, if you want it back to center, just push that thing straight in.
Right.
But yeah, that's a bummer, but I'm glad he got some redemption. I've been there before.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So
yeah, we were very happy that he was able to get redemption for sure. So
I'm not happy that I missed it, but here's what it is.
Sorry, not trying to pour any more salt in that wound, Ron.
I know, there's been plenty. So again, another one that we continually repeat, especially in these wintertime scenarios. We got a lot of cooler weather ahead of us still, but in spite of how warm it's been. But, and again, even when it's warm and things start to warm up throughout the day, watching the thermals. And I was with my cousin. We were photographing wild horses in south central Wyoming. And I just was being lazy and was shooting from the back seat of the vehicle. And of course, the air going out the side window was warmer than the air outside. And so you're going to have that thermal issue. So just get yourself outside, get away from the vehicle, away from that heat source, and get your shot. Otherwise, you're going to deal with thermals, and it'll be impossible to get a sharp image. So, and then, don't be afraid to leave your gear outside. And people that travel with me are always upset because the only reason I turn the heat on is if we're fogged up. Otherwise, there's no heat in the vehicle at all because I want it. And a lot of times I'm driving with the windows down. Doesn't matter how cold it is, because I want my glass to be the same as the ambient temperature outside, just in case that scenario comes up. Because the same thing can happen with your lens hood, especially with those large primes, those larger lens hoods. They retain a little bit of heat inside it, so you can create a little pocket of thermal right in front of the objective lens. So, pop your lens hood off. But if you keep it at the same as the ambient temperature outside, keep it cool, you resolve that issue. And that's why I don't turn the heat on.
Good one.
So again, we've talked about that one ad nauseum, but you always have to remind yourself.
Definitely.
Well, and if you don't mind, Ron or Mark, I know it's probably your turn, but it's a great lead into my second one I was going to bring up.
No.
It's no, you just wait your turn, dang it. But what's interesting, right, is we often think of thermals, and you mentioned it already, in winter, and it's just that transition of the air, right? The difference in temperatures. But most of the time we think of thermals causing problems like when the sun's hitting the sagebrush or something, or there's dew on the sagebrush and the sun's warming it up and it starts to create that atmospheric interruption. But I even noticed it on our recent tour. As I was getting low to get some shots, it was cold enough that there was some of that coming off of the snow just because of the conditions outside, even though it was cold. And so sometimes everybody loves to get low to get shots, but be cognizant of that, because you might get low and you're so low that you're getting fuzzy images or blurry images. So pay attention to that. And sometimes you might need to kneel up or even stand up. You're not going to get that low angle shot just because of the conditions. But if you do stand up or kneel up, you're getting clear shots. So had that scenario unfold, with a river in between us and some different scenarios where and we talked about that with the group, it's like, hey, I'm getting soft images. Everybody might want to stand up or get up a little bit, so you're not getting those images soft. But so it's something you got to be cognizant about all the time. And, it's like you can never get away from it, right? Depending on how close you are and what those conditions are like, it's something you always got to be aware of.
I think tours are...
Now it's my turn.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. I was just holding my breath. I love my turn. Well, that was good because the environment change, right? You got open rivers, open water in freezing cold temperatures. You're going to have some distortion if you're shooting through that at that level, especially at a distance. So, yeah, it was a good add-on. It was worth waiting. Happy to wait.
Thanks, buddy.
Anytime. I saw something, I cannot remember who posted it, so there's nothing at all personal on this. Tours, I think, are fantastic for people to learn about wildlife and to learn from a guide, a professional, for quality images. And it just opens up so many doors. And in places like when you do yours in Yellowstone, I mean, it really gives some insight far faster into this great, impressive, large ecosystem. And something that the wolves there this year seem to have been, at least for some people, at sometimes off the charts for what they're getting. And I saw a video, and it was one of those, we're scrolling through Instagram, hitting stuff like, and it's one that made me stop. And it was, I have no idea what the original footage is like, but on the post, on the reels, a full frame wolf, black wolf, and it was howling. And it was like this what's your descriptor? Just amazing footage to get that snow coming down, the wolf howling. And it was clearly a tour because it wasn't just that photographer. Somebody walked past the camera in the background, and you hear with the pants while the wolf's howling. I'm like, so just to be aware of the situation, the rarity of being able to film wolves in a beautiful scene while they're howling. And if the outerwear makes noise, everybody should just stop, right? And enjoy, or time it so they're all together, ready. Okay, we're going to film this, quick, go. If you're not ready, just stand still, right? That's part of as a guide, you want everybody to enjoy it, but you don't want, at the same time, don't want everybody to miss it because somebody's not prepared. So it's just a shame because that audio, of course, it can be edited later and other audio can be added on, but it was just perfect except for that. And I think I even heard someone talk or something, say something in the background. So maybe there was the mindset that everybody knew they were going to dub in audio later, but it was just happening. It was just married up perfectly with the howling. And so just to be aware of outer layers in the winter. Of course, quieter outer layers are better for any situation as a wildlife and nature photographer when you're dealing with animals and wild animals. So that's something to be aware of. Anyway, it was still a great clip, and I know they could make something high quality of it by just editing the audio and patching it too. But it was just one of those things that I caught, and it was like, why would they walk by swishing clothing during the video? So that's not my pro tip. That was just piggybacking onto this winter stuff. So something I wanted to.
You took your turn. You took your turn.
It's so much shorter than the first one. That was like a quarter of the time. I was so. A few different little things I wanted to bounce off you guys because this is an ever evolving conversation. And I see people, great photographers, posting stuff at ISOs where I kind of go, wow, you're going there. Like high ISOs now, right? And a lot of people, I guess the difference to me is with publishing, my goal is selling the images to any market that wants it. I cannot have an image be requested and at any frequency of my reply saying, no, the resolution won't hold up to that. That's not tolerable in the business. It's got to be good. So I don't shoot high ISO ever. Unless it's like super crazy, wolves howling, snow coming down, and it's the only way to document it. And I'm not going to expect to sell that as a large reproduction. And it's not just even a large reproduction.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my clients, know that if they're getting a high-res image, they can crop in on that and change for what they want. And they're kind of mentally trained that way now to know that capability. And if something's delivered where it doesn't accommodate that, that starts to curve in their minds what the application variety of my images. So I don't shoot in high ISO. But I wanted to ask you guys where you're at these days. I still cap it at 800, and I can still see at 100%. Not anything that would limit it, but noise there. I will shoot up to 16, but I won't go over 16. Unless it's something exceptional. But the pivot nowadays is, and I wanted to ask you guys if you're doing this, and I've started to play with it, but I haven't done it enough to know the exact limitations yet. But the denoise software is raising the game what we can do in post, right? So out of the camera, if I'm happy at 800 ISO or less, with the denoise software, how much does that bump it? So I use Photoshop, and in Camera Raw, the denoise is really good. And I also have Topaz, and the various levels in that you can select as well. I find the auto good in Camera Raw. And I don't use these a lot, but they do definitely tighten an image up and make it fantastic when it might not have been. So I'm still kind of a little old school. I see people posting it, 5,000 ISO, 6,000 ISO, and happy with it. If it's just for social media, 100% happy with it, no problem. But if they're going to print it, if they want it as a 2-page spread where the editor might already crop in another 50%, then it's a nail biter, because you don't want compromised quality when you're selling material. So where are you guys at with ISO nowadays?
I mean, I know since I started using Topaz, I'm comfortable at 2500, 3200 ISO is probably about as high as I'll go. But again, typically that's for movement. If I've got a subject that's still, just drop it and go with the long exposure, I'm more comfortable with that, because you've got the in-body and lens stabilization, so you've got several stops of forgiveness at lower shutter speeds now with the modern equipment. So,
but you can keep your ISO lower because of that, right?
Right, you can drop it, yeah. But if there's a little bit of action, some kind of behavior that I just really want to capture, I'll go up to 2500 is about, for me. I know some people shoot higher, but that's about where I'm comfortable with what Topaz can do for it. And I still think Topaz is better. Lightroom's got the denoise feature now. And number one, it's slower than Sin compared to Topaz. Number two, I think Topaz's algorithms just do a little bit better job. They've been out longer, so that artificial intelligence has had more sample sizes, so to speak. But it does a fantastic job. But I'm not super comfortable shooting much higher than that. This kind of leads into my next one too, but I know Jason uses Topaz as well, and so I want to let him speak to that, but it kind of leads into where I was going to go next. But I agree, Mark. I think, and even publishing is a little bit different than print quality, right? Because you can get away with a little bit lower quality image and still put it in a magazine.
Yeah, it all depends on the size and what they do with it. But for sure,
Right.
magazines are not big, right? Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've run magazine covers and 2-page spreads off my iPhone pictures.
Right, exactly.
No issue.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's just I don't want any minimal limitations. That's all. But I guess part of the reason I brought this up is that with the technology changing in post, it does give those staunch photographers like myself that want the very fine image more flexibility with what these software capabilities now offer.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm right there where Ron said it's funny, and I'm sure it's probably because we shoot the same body too, and we found that that R5 can handle up to about 3200s my max, and I don't like to be above 16 if I can, right, Mark? I mean, it's
Right.
really just I'd rather be as low as possible all the time. That's my goal. But I've also learned that even when I shoot it at 200 or 400 ISO, I've changed my the way I process my images, my process, and every image now I turn all the sharpening off in my camera, and every image that goes into Lightroom, I don't use any of the sharpening in Lightroom, and I run every single image through Topaz now because it's so fast and it cleans up images so well that I think the image just looks way better when it comes out of Topaz than it does when it's in Lightroom. That's just what I've found. So part of my new process now is to throw it in Topaz, let it do the sharpening and the denoise there. And, I've never had a single problem with blowing up images very large and, having them look really good. And like Ron said, the AI in Topaz is so good with keeping the detail and the feathers and the horns and the animals and softening the right areas of an image. Every now and then you'll get some funky artifacts. You got to pay attention. But for the most part, it just nails it. So I don't even sharpen or anything in Lightroom anymore. So
It's a big deal.
Speaking
How
of,
long? When did you switch?
yeah. And Topaz hasn't had an update for quite a while, right? But last update they had on their denoise platform, it's probably been a year and a half, 2 years ago now, I'm guessing, something like that. And I've been doing it ever since then. That last version they came out with just seemed to be just money. So for probably a good year at least, that's been my new process.
To know.
So right, like you said, Mark, we're always trying to find like which software, which tool is going to do the best for us, right? And what I found is that so now every image, this is stupid, right? My process is, instead of getting shorter, it's getting longer, but it's faster overall because the tools are faster now. But taking it from Lightroom, doing my edits, and I take it into Topaz, do the sharpening, it comes back, then I actually open it up into Photoshop to do my any little removals I need to do in my watermarking and resizing and everything. Now, when I say resizing, I mean just saving it as a TIFF, saving it as a JPEG, and then downsizing for Instagram. And I save all those versions, and then I'm done. But so now I'm using all three programs on every image. So
yeah, very interesting, cool. But yeah, it's a longer workflow, but you're using more advanced tools, and that's interesting. Yeah. So with Topaz, with denoise, it's got I don't have it in front of me, but there's what's the one? It's the first level, and then there's clear, and then what's the first one that you can
AI
select?
clear.
But that seems to be the second.
AI
level.
clear is the first one, I think. But
you're talking about just the different modes it can do.
Yeah, when I open denoise,
Is that what you're talking about, Mark?
Opens the image, and on the right-hand toolbar, there's like 4 levels of sharpening. And I never, it's always the one first or second. When I get down to the third or fourth, and then the artifacts seem to come in because obviously they're expecting an image that was needed, major sharpening. But the first couple are great, and I mean the other ones may have applications, and maybe I'm just not using that, but. I was just, why I brought it up was, do you have it automatically just go through the one level, or do you do it depending on the image?
I don't mess with levels at all. There's 2 different tool sets. One is the type of mode you want it to use, and I let the AI decide what's best for the image, and it's usually pretty stinking good. And then there's the second level that talks about, how much sharpening and how much denoise to apply, and there's sliders. And I let that be on AI mode most of the time too. And so what I'll do is I just throw it in there. It's on AI for both of those and let it do its thing. And then if I'm not happy with something or whatever, then I'll play with the different types or whatever and how much sharpening or whatever, But
yeah, there's the automatic, and then there's like the manual. Where you are making your manual adjustments, and it just kind of depends on what you want the end product to be. But then there's the AI clear that you were talking about also, Mark, and that's a little bit different, but it still does a great job of improving the sharpness and the. So I went to, it's been a long time ago now, but I went to one of Charles Glatzer's. He's got a technical series, he calls it, and it is just that. You're down in Florida. You're in a location where you're photographing birds in this great scenario, huge rookery of multiple species, and so targets of opportunity are just, they abound. You're not going to run out of something to shoot. But he talks about technical aspects, and one of the things that he created was basically a preset for Photoshop where he is darkening the shadows or deepening the shadows, and then he was going in, and this would just go in and manually like add some sharpness to the edges. So, and his preset that he created a long time ago did exactly what Topaz does now. And now it's just doing it with AI. You're not going in and you're, putting your preset on a specific mask. It's just doing the whole image. And honestly, it's a great finished product. And I don't use it for everything, for sure. I think one thing that you have to pay attention to is there are some editors that just don't like it. They would rather have the more unrefined image, and it's interesting to me. But you can, if you look at them long enough, you can tell what's gone through Topaz and what hasn't, because there is going to be a little bit of noise with every image. But if it's too clean, obviously, and it shouldn't be, depending on what your camera settings are, they do notice those things. So it depends on your editor as well. So be careful with that.
I don't like it when the pixels kind of blend together. It gets that smooth. That's
right.
I don't like that personally. I don't like that look at all. It's just if there's a bit too much grain, it just tightens it up. And I've been using the one in Camera Raw, and I dialed it. I think the automatic AI was 50%, and I switched it pretty quickly to 40%. And that's what I mean.
I dropped it for me too.
Yeah, and I use the beta version of Photoshop. They seem to be updating it quite frequently, and it has all the tools. And there was another thing too.
All the new tools,
the background highlight versus subject layering, and it's very easy to do. And you just have to close when you finish it. Go back in the Photoshop. Well, it's in Photo. Let me think. You got to close the layer, but why I mention that is sometimes on really flat light images on a really overcast day, and there's not a lot of dramatic change in an image. By highlighting the background, it seems to nail it like 94% of the time and get the background. You can darken the background a bit, and you can select the subject and brighten it. It just gives a little bit more dramatic separation in the image. Now, purists won't like that, right? But it does take a flat light day. Back in the day, if you shot Kodachrome slide film in he shot or she shot Fujichrome, they're very different. It's how the presentation was done, right? It wasn't. You could look at them and say, "There's no way those are taken at the same place, at the same time." I would argue it's the same by taking this and just playing with light a little bit. The light on a given day was too flat.
Absolutely.
And it makes that image by selecting the subject and brightening 5 or 10%, by taking the background and darkening by 5 to 40%. You can just make that image dramatic. Not off the charts. It's not like the rich evening crazy light or the Loftus filter effect, but it gives it a little bit more pop that will have visual appeal. Like there was a bit more light. It's almost like there was a tiny subtle ray of light hitting the subject, right? Not enough so that it creates a halo. That would be way too much. Just a bit of. So I mean, the tools. I'm loving that because I know it'll increase for some of those situations, increase the marketability of an image, and it's artistic. But
so I think, you know, like for a bird photographer, what you're talking about, the technique that you're talking about using is almost, it's likens itself to using fill flash. You know, so there's
more
bird
subtle.
photographers that'll,
Yeah.
yeah, it's super subtle. They use a little bit of fill flash because it brings in the feather detail, and
I've
you
never
get,
liked
you
that.
know, even on
But I
the
see it.
even on the overcast days, you'll get a little light in the eye, you know. So
Yeah,
but
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Everybody's got their own peccadillos, right? That the whole fill flash thing never. But this, I wouldn't do it to that degree. But you could, you know, you could take a sky.
no, but it has the same impact. What you're talking about, it has the same impact as.
You could definitely make that happen. Yeah. I just like that where the software capabilities, there's more and more tools that just make these minor shifts fun to play with in images that, you know, flat images still sell sometimes, but it's not going to sell as frequently as one that has that 20% more dramatic appeal to it. You know, just that subtle tweak. But sorry, that's a bit of a change of editing subject than the ISO too. But it's just something new that I've been playing with. It's kind of like the dodge and burn effect, right? But it's highlighting a segment, not just whatever you just choose to be the size of the circle you're using for dodge and burn, which is another, you know, useful tool, very useful tool in some lighting situations. But all that stuff goes right back to, you know, is it 6 minutes an image or 45 minutes an image?
Right.
Too.
Yep.
So, but it's fun editing. I mean,
editing is an art form in and of itself. And you know, with these advancements, when Jason turned me on to Topaz a few years back, it opened up a whole new world. I was back editing 2013 images again because it's that good and it makes that kind of an impact on an image. And so there were images that I didn't use that were, you know, they were close, but just not quite sharp enough to be a usable image. And going back through and re-editing some of those, it's fun because it just deepens your portfolio. You know, what I was going to talk about, and the reason that it kind of fits in with what you were discussing with ISO is I just got my first cover from screen grab or a frame grab out of a video, and the video was with a GoPro.
Really?
So my first magazine cover with a screen grab from a GoPro, and it was spawning brook trout.
Very cool.
Right after Jason and I met, we were talking. He had his son Hunter with him up in Rocky Mountain National Park, and we were talking to Hunter. Hunter was doing a lot of video. He was playing with some different tools. He had a GoPro and had a handheld camcorder. So we said, you know, you take your GoPro up to this spot. There's a bunch of brook trout spawning there. And Hunter went up and got some cool video of these spawning brook trout. And so I went up this fall and played with it a little bit. Well, then I was in the Bighorn Mountains in Wyoming, and there was some brook trout spawning. Threw it on the monopod, you know, mounted it on the monopod, and was able to get some brook trout that were on a red, or on a basically a area in the rocks where they've cleaned out and where they're actively courting. And you have to wait until you get a dead still pair. But I got a dead still pair of brook trout and was able to just grab one frame out of the video in 60 frames a second, and it made the cover of the photo contest issue, Wyoming Wildlife. So
awesome. Eager.
Yeah. Hey, was that the best camera is the one you got in your hand, right?
I'm totally teasing.
The versatility of GoPros, I love it. Is that from the
They're
clip
awesome
that's on
tools.
our opener?
Yeah, it is actually.
Right? Beyond the Wild opener on our YouTube channel,
Beyond
because
the
you
Wild
guys are all
opener. It's
watching
on
us on
there.
YouTube,
Yeah.
right? You can listen to us on audio
That's
platforms, but watch us on YouTube. The opener, that's cool. I love that clip.
That's the shot. So don't forget
Ron's
to take your
versatility
GoPro. It
never
takes
ceases to amaze. What
yeah,
will Ron do
Ron's
next?
desperation. Ron's desperation creates a lot of different opportunities.
It is so much fun filming fish underwater with GoPros or
It
action
is.
camera.
Yeah.
So much fun.
And
Do it.
when we did that Alaska trip several years ago, we had a couple opportunities where the orcas were coming right at the boat, and I remember almost having to grab my son because he was so concerned about getting that camera down in the water. He just about took a swim.
I wanted to jump in, get it, but if we had a pole, that would have been perfect.
I'm
Live and
telling
learn,
you.
right?
And then this last fall, we haven't gotten to this trip yet, but Jason and I were up in Churchill, and we were able to get some beluga whales underwater, and it was incredible. They were swimming right along with the Zodiac, and
when are we doing that?
They
podcast?
call them the canaries of the. We've got to do it soon.
Yeah,
but we got to get a couple other people on that one. Yeah, the canaries of the sea. They're just so vocal, and that GoPro picked up the audio, underwater. So it
picked up the audio on the boat too, which is just the audio on the boat,
which is almost as entertaining. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that's awesome.
It's a great tool. Doesn't weigh anything. You're using a totally separate card than what's in your camera. So take it with you. If you look at some of the stuff Mark's got, also clips on the intro, outro. Some of his caribou clips are with GoPro. That we'll have to post one on the Instagram page as well, but it's a really flexible tool that can, and you mix that with, they will take a beating. You mix it with the tripod that you were showing earlier, the first pro tip tonight. And now you've got a tool that you can wrap it on a tree, you can put it on the ground, you can do whatever you want.
Wrap it around a rock in a more busy current stream, and
yeah. And just another shameless plug, if you go to Prime Video, it's called Dogs in the Wild, and you want to watch episode 2. I think it's a rental fee, but episode 2 and 3, there's some Swift Fox footage that is sorry, I tongue tied there.
Say that 5 times fast.
But a couple of the opening clips were clips that I got with GoPros mounted, and so that all a lot of that GoPro footage made the show. So it's a tool that's accepted by BBC for sure. Mm-hmm. So they use it quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I will just say real quick, we talked about the Katmai trip. When you're out there in Katmai with the bears, GoPros are fun there too. But you got to be real careful about where you decide to leave a GoPro, because sometimes the bears will sit there and unintentionally guard it, and your chances of getting it back before the plane arrives can be a little sketchy. So
just tie some fishing line. No,
that's a good point. Actually, tie some fishing line too, so you can drag it back. Yeah,
and then it'd be playtime.
Yeah, exactly. Drag a bear right to you.
That's funny. Well, fellas, we've been at it a little over an hour. Do you have another one, Mark? Go ahead.
Well, we can stop too. That's all good, man.
Go ahead.
Many more podcasts coming up. I just want to mention, if you're using something like this and filming, to watch, if it's a sunny day, to watch shadow. Be aware of the shadow that this casts in the foreground. The very first time I used a tripod with an action camera, that happened, which created funny footage that we talked about before. Hilarious shadow puppet caribou footage. But cloudy day, no big deal. But on a sunny day, you're going to have to play with the angle to keep the shadow out of the foreground on a wide angle of the camera's pointing, because it's a wide angle camera on these action cameras, it captures a lot of the landscape. Or also bend the legs so you go lower to the ground if the vegetation will allow it. Or perhaps clip it onto a branch where the shadow would be above the shadow. It all depends on the kind of footage you're going for, but the light does factor into it that way if it's a sunny day. No, I'm great, guys. This has been fun. I just love hanging out and catching up with you guys, and always surprises that come up, things I hadn't necessarily thought about in my world, in my office here and stuff. It's great to hear what you've been up to and where the conversation leads, as always, with you guys, with guests. Grateful for pictureline.com and their support, and Canon. It's been fun as always, guys. You can see our content on YouTube at Beyond the Wild Podcast. You can find us on our website at beyondthewildpodcast.com. We have show notes there where you can get the summary of each podcast, as well as things we've talked about, photographs, and, well, like a little slideshow, not a slideshow, but a collection of photographs, especially when we have guests or talks about trips that we've been on. You can see some of that there. If you watch us on YouTube, you may get to see some of that footage. I know just today I sent a variety of clips and images to Tyler to put on an episode for YouTube, so that makes it a little more dynamic as well. And please take the time on any of these platforms that allow for it to give us a thumbs up and a positive review, because that helps us to get traction so we can continue to grow. And as we enjoy doing this and sharing our time and information with you, you can find us on Instagram, on Beyond the Wild Podcast Instagram page, and each of our pages as well. If you have questions, reach out, send us a DM on Instagram. And as always, thank you for joining us. And guys, we'll see you again soon.